Hey there folks, it's Blue here from Blue Bears Games, and for today's video I will be showing you my newest custom ordered budget commander build using Zacama Primal Calamity as the commander. Before I get to today's video, I want to first take a moment to ask for your help in supporting my channel. The easiest and cheapest ways to show your support are by liking my videos, subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet, sharing any of my content on your socials, and or by watching some of my many other videos that I've created over the years. Additionally, you can support the channel by purchasing Super Thanks, channel memberships, decks that you may have seen on the channel directly from me on the Blue Bears Games Facebook page, and or visiting our sponsor, Arcane Fortress, by using the link that just popped up at the top of your screen and purchasing any of their amazing gaming supplies from them. By using that link specifically, you should receive a 5% discount store-wide. And finally, the last thing you can possibly do to help the channel out is through donations of extra cards that you may have just lying around. Even your bulkiest of bulk will help immensely, so if you'd like to donate to the channel, please message me on the Blue Bears Games Facebook page or email me at bluebearsgames@gmail.com and we can discuss the logistics of how. Anything you can do to help support my small channel is greatly appreciated, and I thank you for it. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. I'll begin by telling you that this custom build was actually ordered with a second build using Ella's Ilkor Sadistic Pilgrim. The total budget I was given was up to $300, split between the two decks however I saw fit with the given parameters. When all was said and done, this deck came out to about roughly $130 of that budget. Originally, this was ordered as a $40 budget deck, but the customer saw what $40 gets you with Dinosaurs and was like, nah, I need a little more firepower, so they decided to give me a slightly bigger budget. The parameters that I was given were that it be dinosaur.tribal, full of big beefy creatures, and they wanted trample to be part of the theme. They weren't 100% sure which dinosaur they wanted as the commander, so after a little bit of discussion, we came up with Zacama. Let's take a look at what Zacama does real quick, and then I'll show you what I came up with for the rest of the build. Zacama is 1 red, 1 green, 1 white, and 6 generic mana to cast for a 9/9 legendary elder dinosaur with vigilance, reach, trample, and 4 additional abilities that are quite strong. The first of those additional abilities says that when Zacama enters, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. The other 3 of those abilities are all activated abilities that do various things when you put mana into them. Those abilities are as follows. For each 1 red and 2 generic mana you pay, Zacama deals 3 damage to target creature. For each 1 green and 2 generic mana you pay, destroy target artifact or enchantment. And finally, for each 1 white and 2 generic mana you pay, you gain 3 life. All I can say is, wow. You get a lot of bang for your buck with Zacama. 9 mana is a lot to pay for a commander, so if you're going to use a commander that costs that much, it better be worth it, and I do believe that Zacama is. So, you know what Zacama does, and you know the basic game plan. Now let me show you what I put in the rest of the 99 that should help accomplish what the customer wanted. So as I generally like to do, I'll start with the lands, and with an upgraded budget, we get upgraded lands. So we start off with a command tower, which I don't put in the budget decks, the $40 budget decks, because I don't have enough of them, but when you get an upgraded deck, you get a command tower. Then a Path of Ancestry, because this is a tribal deck after all, so that's a good inclusion. A Jungle Shrine, because we are in these 3 colors. It does come into play tapped, but at least it provides the 3 colors you need. Rootbound Crag, Sun Petal Grove, and Clifftop Retreat, because I'm a big fan of the check lands. They are upgraded, in my opinion. Cinderglade, so this has both types, and it can come into play untapped. And the both types is actually important, because with green, you can go search for forest specifically. So I wanted to make sure that the land types were on them. So I also put in a Canopy Vista. There is no red-white version of this, so there is no red-white version of it in the deck. And then I did the 3 thriving lands that go with these colors. So we got Heath, Grove, and Bluff. And why I chose these as my budget dual lands is because you get to choose the other color. This deck is mostly green, so you're probably going to end up choosing green as the opposite color on these lands, except for on the green one, you're going to choose whichever one you need. Then we have a Bonder's Enclave. In this deck, if you can't draw cards because the power of your creatures isn't high enough, then you're doing something wrong. This is a very high power creature deck, so this is a great inclusion. And card draw is kind of a small little deficit for these 3 colors, so I wanted to add a little bit of card draw. And there's more to come, so just wait. Then Encroaching Waste, because if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I include at least 1 land destruction land in every one of the decks, because you just never know what you're going to face. Naya Panorama, so this actually goes and searches for either a basic mountain, forest, or plains, and puts it into play for you tapped. So it's land fetching and deck thinning. Same thing with Terramorphic Expanse and for Evolving Wilds. They're deck thinning, they're land fixing, they're just really good. And the rest of the lands are going to be basics. So forests more than the others, mountains, and then plains. And I don't remember the exact amount, but if you want to take a look at what the exact amount is, I'll have the link to the deck list in the description of the video. The next section of cards I'll go over is the ramp. It's going to be a little bit thicker than usual. I usually like to stick around 7, but the average mana value of this deck is a little higher than most because it's dinosaurs and they just have high mana values. So I have a little bit more in here, and they're all a little different. There are 3 different types. The first 2 are going to be mana rocks. So again, with an upgraded budget, you get upgraded mana rocks. So this one comes with a Soul Ring and an Arcane Signet, and the Signet is really important because it's a 3-color deck. And of course, the Soul Ring is nice ramp. I've also included a Basalt Monolith in here. Now, this isn't technically in here for ramp, because it's not really technically ramp. It's a 3 to cast mana rock that taps to add 3, so you're not getting any plus out of that. It's in here for what I'm going to talk about later in the video, which is the combo. The next section of cards will be what green does best, which is actual ramp. So we start off with a crop rotation. It's 1 to cast, it's an instant, so you can do it on an opponent's turn, and then you sacrifice a land and you go search your library for any land you want and put it onto the battlefield, not tapped. Any land is important. So right now there aren't that many powerful lands in this deck, but as the person who gets this deck upgrades it, they may get some really nasty lands that they can do, and crop rotation will go and get it for them. Then we've got Rampant Growth, which is the reason why ramp is called ramp. Rampant Growth, it just searches your library for a basic land, puts it onto the battlefield tapped for you. Then I got Thunderherd Migration, because this is a dinosaur deck. It's a 2 to cast sorcery that you have to reveal a dinosaur or it costs 1 more, but in this deck, it should end up being 2. And it basically is a Rampant Growth. You go and search for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So in this deck, it's a 2 to cast ramp instead of a 3. Farseek, this is another 2 to cast ramp card. It lets you search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card, which is why it's important to have the land types on the lands that I showed you earlier. And you put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Cultivate lets you go search for 2 lands, and I tried to get as many ramp cards in here that search for multiple lands as possible. So this lets you go search for 2 lands, basic lands of course. Put 1 in your hand and 1 onto the battlefield tapped. Grow from the Ashes. Again, you can get 2 lands with this. It's a 3 to cast ramp spell that lets you search for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield and then shuffle. It's not tapped for this one. And then if the spell was kicked, because it has a kicker cost of 2, you instead search your library for 2 basic lands and put them onto the battlefield. Again, not tapped. So if you pay the 5, you get 2 back at least. Far Wandering is another ramp spell that lets you go search for multiple lands. So you search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. For 3, if you have Threshold, and Threshold is if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you instead search your library for 3 basic land cards and put them into play tapped. That's a hell of a lot of land if you've got Threshold. And then the last spell version of ramp is going to be Path to the Festival. This is a 3 to cast sorcery that lets you search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And then if there are 3 or more basic land types among lands that you control, you can scry 1. This is a 3-color deck, so this may actually happen. But then it flashes back for 5, so you can do it again. So it's additional ramp. It's not going to get you 2 land cards on the same casting, but it can get you up to 2 land cards. So those are the spells for ramp. The last section will be creatures. Dinosaurs have this fun thing that they do where they have creatures that reduce their generic costs. There are 3 of them, and they're all in this deck. The first one is Kinjali's Caller. It's a 1 to cast 03 that says dinosaur spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Pretty basic, pretty simple. The red one is a 2 to cast 1/2 that reduces their cost by 1, but then you can also tap it to give a dinosaur haste, which is a bonus. And then the best one of the 3 is Knight of the Stampede. This one is a 4 to cast 2/4, so it's actually quite beefy and can take a lot of damage. And it makes all of your dinosaur spells cost 2 less to cast. This is all generic mana, not colored, remember that. Also, keep in mind, a lot of the dinosaurs I'm about to show you will have a high generic mana cost in them, so these 3 alone could really reduce the cost of all of your spells that you're casting. Moving on, we're going to go over the creatures now. This is the biggest section of the deck because this is, at its core, a dinosaur tribal deck. So, we'll start off with the green ones. I'm going to go in color order, so we're going to go, I think it's green, red, white, and then multicolor. So the first one is Armored Skincaller. This is a 3 to cast 3/3 that when it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a dinosaur card from your hand, and if you do, or if you control another dinosaur, you gain 3 life. Now, this isn't all that great. This is actually probably one of the worst dinosaurs in the deck. It's in here for 2 reasons. 1, life gain is great because you may be slower than your opponents, so having a little bit more life will help keep you alive longer. But it's a 3 to cast 3/3, and that's actually not bad. So that's why that's in there. Next is Ranging Raptors. This is a 3 to cast 2/3 with an Enrage ability. Enrage means that if it takes damage, it does something for dinosaurs. So this one's Enrage ability says that whenever it takes damage, you may search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. So it's additional ramp because you're going to need a lot of mana for this deck to really work. Next up is Thrashing Brontodon. This is a 3 to cast 3/4, so right off the bat, it's a 3 to cast 3/4. So the stats to the mana cost
are through the roof. But then it has another ability. Unfortunately, it's a sacrifice ability, but it's a great utility ability. You can pay 1 and sacrifice it and not tap it. This can be done immediately. And you can destroy a target artifact or enchantment. So it's dual purpose here. You can either use it as removal, or it's just a nice big beater for 3 mana. Runic Armasaur, another 3-to-cast dinosaur that is a 2/5 that says whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or a land that isn't a mana ability, you may draw a card. Card draw was one of the weaknesses for these 3 colors. I wanted to shore that up a little bit, so I added a few things that let you draw cards for different reasons. This is one of them. Ripjaw Raptor is another one. This is a 4-to-cast 4/5. So again, stats to mana cost are pretty decent, but then it has an enrage ability. When it takes damage, you draw a card. Simple, plain, clean, really useful. Next up is Earthshaker Dreadmaw. This is a 6-to-cast dinosaur that's a 6/6 with trample. Now we're getting into this sub-theme here. They wanted trample. I put as much trample in here as I could, but I also wanted to put utility, so that's why this is the first one. This is a 6/6 trampler that says when it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other dinosaur you control. There are some lower cost dinosaurs in here, so you may have 5, 6, or even 7 dinosaurs on the battlefield. That's a lot of cards to draw. Like I said, I tried to shore up the card draw problem. Thundering Spineback. This is a 7-to-cast 5/5. This is a lord that makes all other dinosaurs you control get +1/+1. And then for each 6 that you put into it, you can create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature with trample. That's important. I have a way to make infinite mana in this deck, and this could be one of your win cons. Just swarming the board with 3/3 trampling dinosaurs. That actually end up being 4/4s if Thundering Spineback is in play. Next up is Galta Primal Hunger. This is 2 green and 10 generic mana to cast. For a 12/12 trampler that can cost X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures that you control. So if you happen to have 10 power on the board from your creatures total, this bad boy, this beatstick, can cost 2 green to cast. Not bad. Now we're moving into the red dinosaurs. The first one up is Belligerent Yearling. This is a 2-to-cast 3/2 with trample that says whenever another dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Belligerent Yearling's base power become equal to that creature's power until end of turn. So if you happen to have Belligerent Yearling out in play, and you're able to cast, say, a Galta Primal Hunger, its base power will become a 12 with trample. That's not bad either. The next one is Giant Cindermaw. This is a 3-to-cast 4/3 with trample that says players can't gain life. So all those life gain decks out there, this puts a small hampering on them because they might have creature removal. If they're in white, they'll have some removal, but it slows them down a little bit for a couple turns anyway. Next up is Scytheclaw Raptor. This is a 3-to-cast 4/3 again that says whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, this will deal 4 damage to them. That could end up being really bad for a blue deck that's doing a lot of cantrips. Not really, their friend. Next is Rampaging Raptor. This is a 4-to-cast 4/4 with trample and haste. An ability that for every 3 you put into it, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And then a final ability that says whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls, or battle that player controls. I don't think a lot of people are playing battles in Commander, but they are playing planeswalkers, and this can help take them out. Vitali Primal Storm. This is 6-to-cast for a 6/6. You should recognize this mostly because it's in a lot of precons. It's a dinosaur that's a 6/6 for 6. It doesn't have trample, but it does have a pretty cool ability. It says whenever it attacks, you exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. So it steals other people's spells off the top of their library. That could be quite fun, if you ask me. Now we're on to the white dinosaurs. First up is Snubhorn Sentry. This is a 1-to-cast 0/3 with Ascend. Ascend means that if you have 10 permanents on the battlefield, you gain the City's Blessing. And then it gets +3/+0 as long as you have the City's Blessing. So it could end up being a 1-to-cast 3/3. Kinjali's Sunwing. This is a 3-to-cast 2/3 with flying. That's the important reason why this is in here, is because there's not a lot of flying in here. This is one of the few that does fly, so it's kind of helpful because that's a weakness also of the dinosaurs. Then it has another ability that's kind of stacksy. It says creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. I'm not sure how important that's going to be. It's more important that it's a flyer, but that could have potentially, game-changing effects if your opponent's creatures enter tapped. Temple Altasaur. This is a 5-to-cast 3/4. This says if a source would deal damage to another dinosaur that you control, prevent all but one of that damage. Next is Bellowing Aegosaur. This is a 6-to-cast 3/5 with an Enrage ability. And its Enrage ability says that whenever it is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. So that kind of grows the horde of dinosaurs a little bit every time it takes damage. And it has a big butt, so it can take some damage. So it might actually get a lot of counters on some of your creatures. Then we have Goring Ceratops. This is a 7-to-cast 3/3 double striker that says whenever it attacks other creatures you control, gain double strike until end of turn. Double strike could be very amazing, especially on a creature like Galta, who's a 12/12. Imagine double strike trample 12/12. I think this is the last white one we have. It's Zacama Primal Dawn. This is an 8 to cast, 4/8 with word salad of abilities. Flying, which is very important. Double strike, which can be important. Vigilance, which means it can attack and still block. Trample, and the most important thing of all, indestructible. I was wrong. One more white one. The last one, I believe. You know what? I'm going to check. Yep. The last one is Wakening Sun's Avatar. This is a 8 to cast 7/7 that when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, which you will, destroy all non-dinosaur creatures. It is a one-sided board wipe. Not bad for, what is that, 8 to cast? I mean, yeah, it's very late game, but hopefully you've got some cost reduction going on. Now we're on to the gold or multicolored dinosaurs. These are going to be a little lower casting cost because they're going to be a little bit smaller, but still effective. First one is probably my favorite named and meme-ish card in Magic, Sky Terror. It's 2 to cast for a 2/2 Flying Menace. Do you get the pun? Sky Terror, it's a Flying Menace. Get it? No? Just me? Okay. Next is Huatli's Raptor. This is another 2 to cast, 2/3 with Vigilance. Then it says when it enters the battlefield, proliferate, which may not be all that important. It's in here because it's a 2 to cast, 2/3 with Vigilance. That last line will only matter if you've got some +1/+1 counters on your things. Then we have Itzgwinth, Firstborn of Gishath. Another 2 to cast, 2/3. This one has haste. And then an ability that says when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 generic mana. And when you do, target dinosaur you control deals damage equal to its power to any other creature. Basically, it fights another creature. Or actually, it bites them, because fight means that they deal damage back. Bite means that they just deal their damage. Then we have Raging Regisaur. This is a 4 to cast, 4/4. When it attacks, it deals 1 damage to any target. So you can take out some 1/1 chump blockers. You can actually hit your own guys for the Enrage. And that's what's important, is the Enrage part. It'll just depend on what's on the board. Next is Raging Swordtooth. This is a 5 to cast, 5/5 with Trample. That says when it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each other creature. This could potentially wipe out a horde of token creatures, but it also sets off your own creature's Enrage abilities. Then we have Regisaur Alpha. This is a 5 to cast, 4/4. That's kind of a lord. It gives other dinosaurs you control haste. And then when it enters the battlefield, you create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with Trample. So look at that for a second. It's 5 to cast, it's a 4/4, and it comes with a 3/3. So for 5 mana, you get 7 power and toughness on the board. And they have haste. Next up is Quartzwood Crasher. So this one is 5 to cast for a 6/6 Trampler that says whenever 1 or more creatures you control with Trample deal combat damage to a player, you create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with Trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. You could create some really large, nasty tokens with this guy. The big get in this deck was Gishath Sun's Avatar. So this is all 3 colors, I believe that's Naya, and 5. For a 7/6 Trampler Vigilance Haste creature that says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library and put any number of dinosaur creature cards from among them onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this could be the secret second commander. This could also be the commander of the deck. He can swap out what one is leading the deck at the time, and nothing would change. The decks would play exactly the same. I think this one would actually end up being better in some ways, but it really just depends on how they want to play. This is a really good card for this deck. Oop, skipped one. The last dinosaur, as you saw, is Galta and Mavrin. So this is a 7 to cast, 12/12 Trampler that says whenever you attack, this doesn't have to attack, whenever you attack. So you could send 1 token out, and you get to choose one of the following. You can either create a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur creature token with Trample, where X is the greatest power among the attacking creatures. Or you can create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Most likely you're going to pick the dinosaur option, obviously. But either way, you get something. The lifelinkers could actually help keep you alive if you need the life. You never know. And then the only non-dinosaur, but actually helps dinosaurs in the deck, is Forerunner of the Empire. This is a 4 to cast, 1/3 that says when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, then shuffle your library and put that card on top. This is my way of doing tutoring for a dinosaur on the cheap to fit the budget. Then it says whenever a dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Forerunner of the Empire deal 1 damage to each creature. Now this is not a source from a dinosaur, but it doesn't matter. The enraged creatures, and if your opponent has lots of 1/1 tokens, that could actually end up being devastating. The next section of cards I'll show you are the instants and sorceries. So we're going to have one utility slash sort of card draw, I guess, the way that green does card draw, and then the rest of it's going to be removal. It's not that thick of a section, but we'll go over it. First up is Commune with Dinosaurs. This is a very obvious choice. It's a 1-to-cast sorcery that lets you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a dinosaur or a land card, depending on what you need at the time, and put it into your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. You get to choose. So that's the utility slash draw card. The rest of it's removal. We have good old STP, Swords to Plowshares. We have good old Path to Exile. We have Fragmentize, and people question when I use this. It's a 1-to-cast sorcery that destroys an artifact or enchantment with a mana value of 4 or less. There are a lot of artifacts and enchantments out there that for 4 or less can be devastating. And it also could just kill somebody's soul ring. Who knows? We have good old Disenchant. We have something that I don't use very often because I don't have a lot of green-white decks. We have Nature's Chant, which is basically Disenchant, but more flexible. Naturalize, which is a green Disenchant. Return to Nature, which is an upgraded Disenchant. Generous Gift, which is a really upgraded Disenchant because this destroys target permanent. It gives the controller of that permanent a 3/3 green elephant, but here's the cool thing. It says destroy target permanent. That includes lands. That includes planeswalkers. That's anything that's on the board. It was so nice that I did it twice and put in Beast Within for the same effect. And then the last removal, instant sorcery, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it, is Austere Command. So it's a 6-to-cast sorcery where you have to choose 2 out of the 4 following. You can destroy artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost or mana value at this point of 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with a mana value of 4 or greater. What do you think you're going to choose in this deck? Almost everything in here is 4 or greater, so you're going to choose 3 or less. Maybe that'll be a one-sided board wipe, hopefully. Moving on to the next section, we're going to talk about enchantments. There are 3. 2 of them are for card draw purely. Garrick's Uprising is the first one. It's a 3-to-cast enchantment that says when it enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. The bonus here is that it gives creatures you control, all of them, trample, which is the secondary theme of this deck. He wanted trample. I'm going to give them all trample. And then the really good part about it is that whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, under your control, draw a card. That's really important. You can draw a lot of cards off this. If it's mid to late game, you're going to get a lot of cards. The next one is Elemental Bonds. This one's very similar to Garrick's Uprising. So this one's 3 as well. And it says whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. And then the last enchantment is Mana Reflection. This is a 6-to-cast enchantment. It says if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces twice as much of that mana instead. That includes any creatures that tap to add mana, and they have to tap to add it, not reduce cost. Any artifact that taps to add mana, so Soul Ring would tap to add 4 now, which is really good. Or the reason why it's in here technically is for the combo, which includes Basalt Monolith, which I'll go over very shortly. The last section that I'll go over before I tell you about the combo will be the artifacts. There are only 2. The first one is in here solely for one reason. It's called Energy Refractor. It's a 2-to-cast artifact that when it enters play, you draw a card. That's the bonus, is that it lets you draw a card. Then it says for each 2 you pump into it, you can add 1 mana of any color. Okay. Follow me here. This is part of the combo, and the reason why that is because the combo that I'm going to show you in just a second, it produces infinite colorless mana, and for the combo that I want this deck to go off on, we need colored mana. So you can just take that infinite colorless mana and turn it into infinite colored mana. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. The last card is basically the budget Lightning Greaves of the deck, if you will. It helps protect a creature on the board by giving it hexproof. It's Mask of Avacyn. It's 2 to cast. It equips for 3. And then the equipped creature gets +1/+2 and has hexproof. I use these a lot because, Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots are very hard to come by on cheap. They're just, even though they're printed a lot, they just, I don't know. They don't come down in price because they're so good. So this is one of the ways, this, and I have a shield that I use that if you see my budget decks, I use them in place of things like that because they're cheap monetarily and they still get the job done.
Now that you've seen the deck in its entirety, let's talk about this combo that I mentioned a few times throughout the video. As a reminder, the 3 cards I pointed out were Basalt Monolith, Mana Reflection, and Energy Refractor. Combined, these 3 cards together can produce infinite colored mana. Technically, only Basalt Monolith and Mana Reflection are the combo pieces. Energy Refractor is here just to turn that mana into the colors you need. How this combo works is explained in the link that just popped up at the top of your screen. Being able to produce infinite mana is great, but you need outlets for that mana, and luckily there are 2 good ones here. The first outlet is the Commander Zacama, which has 3 abilities that can use all that mana to wipe out a good portion of your opponent's board state, or gain you infinite life. The other outlet is Thundering Spineback, which will net you infinite 3/3 dinosaur creature tokens with trample. None of this is flashy, but it will get the job done. And that, my fellow spellslingers, is my latest custom ordered budget commander build that uses Zacama Primal Calamity as the commander. While the request was just a basic typal dinosaur deck with trampling dinos, I had to find a way to put my little spin on it by adding the infinite mana combo to fully utilize all of Zacama's abilities. Over the years, I've had many people inquire about a dinosaur commander deck, but it just never came to fruition for one reason or another. I'm glad to see that it finally happened so that I could add this type of build to my video portfolio. I tried my best to shore up some of the shortcomings that dinosaur typal decks have, and I'll be quite interested to hear from the new owner in the future to see how it holds up. So, what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts about everything I just showed you in the comments. Well, folks, sadly, that's all I've got for you this week. Thanks for watching, but if you're looking for more magic-related content to watch, please go browse through my channel, as I'm sure you'll find more videos of mine that you would enjoy. Before you go, though, please smash that like button, share this video out to anyone you think may also enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you all very soon.